Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers. And I'm going to talk about, in this mini episode, I like to always make sure it's a mini episode, it's only be a little short one. Often talking to my clients about their relationships because, a good number of my clients are men who are in relationships. So we do a lot of talking about, their relationship, how they can make the relationship better, more connected, more passionate, whatever it is that's meaningful to them, or reducing arguments and so forth. And they often ask me, like, what do you do? What do you do to make your relationship thrive? What do you do to make your relationship go well in these areas? So I thought I'd do a little episode about it, actually. I'm not perfect. Some of the things I do in my relationship that hurt my relationship, I'll start with those. I'm going to tell you about my program. I've got a 12-week program. It's coming up in September 2023, which is really about guiding men to be able to communicate better, love more deeply, express themselves in ways that they never thought were possible, to build more confidence, to be self-led, to, heal some of those unconscious, limiting self-beliefs that we hold on to so that they can move forward powerfully without these things dragging them and holding them back. And I've taken, 2 cohorts of men through this already and seen incredible transformations in their lives. So much so, a number of those men want to come back and do the program again because they love the brotherhood, they love the accountability, they love being held in a space by other like-minded and conscious men who are doing the work to be better and supporting each other. Like, that is one of the most powerful things in the program in and of itself. And it's called Being an Authentic Masculine Man. And I take you through the journey of what I see as the fundamental building blocks of being a masculine man, plus practices, embodied practices that you can take into your life and use from day one in the program all the way through to the end. And there's me supporting you. You literally have me in your pocket for 12 weeks. And from a point of view of what it costs, it is by far the cheapest way to work with me and get the most value. And if you're interested in that, there's a link in the show notes that you can just hop on over to and add your details in, and we can have a conversation about your suitability for the program. So what do I do to make my relationship thrive? What do I do to make my relationship difficult sometimes? Sometimes I will emotionally shut down if I'm having a lot of stress. That's something that I do sometimes. I've really done a lot of work this year on not doing that and doing that far less, which I feel really successful in. My go-to is when I feel stressed about my relationship or about my life in general, is to kind of lock myself away and think about it a lot and work really hard. Maybe a little bit avoid it and stuff like that. Some of the things I do in my relationship to make it difficult is I don't ask clearly for the thing that I want sometimes. Maybe sometimes I'm not aware of what I want. And I guess one of the other things that kind of gets in the way sometimes in a relationship is being afraid to express what I feel because of the impact it may have on my partner. My partner also, as some of you may know. That is something I also have to work with a lot. Like, if I have a thought or I have a feeling and then I express that to her, then it causes her to have a load of thoughts and feelings and expression, and then having to deal with that. That's something that I'm also working with that can be difficult to manage. But again, these are things I'm working on. I'm not just hiding away from. So what do I do to really make our relationship thrive? I would say that one of the things that I do is I really make an effort with Orsa's family, whether that's when we're there in person or we show up and talk to them from time to time. These little things are really important. I see this in other people's relationships where they're not willing to make the effort. They're trying to there's an argument, instead of being the bigger person, they just allow themselves to kind of be, trying to be right in the relationship, with the family. Another way which I really help my relationship thrive actually is actually caring less about being right and caring more about the connection between me and Orsa. There are times where we may have a conversation and I think the thing that I've said is right and that she's wrong, And I just let it go. I just let it go because it's not that important. It's not such a big deal. I think the connection that we have is more important than the being right and winning arguments and so forth. So I let that stuff go quite often, because it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal to me. The meaning I hold around being right and wrong has really lessened over the years through the work that I've done with my coaches and with my own self. So yeah, that's something that's a really important part, because being right isn't that important in your relationship. Deepening and maintaining connection is more important than being right. Something else that I do in a relationship to really make it thrive is really, there's something we jointly do, is prioritizing our pleasure, sexual pleasure. And that can look like talking about sex reasonably frequently, talking about it before we have sex, during we have sex, little comments of feedback and so forth, and talking about it afterwards, because I know a lot of couples, and I work with plenty of men who are in relationship where there's no sex, or the sex isn't the way they want it to be. And what I see from them often is a lack of communication around sex. So this is something that's been important to me, and also we've thrived in that. Something I do to help my relationship thrive is asking for the time and space I need when I want it. And it's less than asking as if I'm asking for permission, but it's actually expressing that, like, oh, I'm going to do nothing today. I'm going to go to the beach on my own, or, and so forth. Like, actually expressing that in my relationship and having conversations around that is really healthy for our relationship. And obviously we've done a lot of groundwork that means that, she also understands that my time alone is just something I need to recharge. And it doesn't mean anything about our relationship. This is a really important piece, because I don't take space just when something's bad. I take space whenever I want, which is usually on a weekly basis, to be honest. That I have at least, 4 to 8 hours where I'm kind of alone and I don't do anything. And that may be on a weekend. And it's just what's good for me. And this next point I'm going to say about what I do, how I show up in a relationship for a thriving relationship, I think is really, really important. And I see that a lot of people I speak to who want to be in a relationship want this. And it is supporting your partner's endeavors. Like the support of their work, their support of their exercise, their support of what they're wanting to create in life, right? Or who they're wanting to be is so, so important. And you can do this in ways through words, you can, through affirmations, through belief, but it also can be little gestures that you can do, like, I don't know, maybe also talks to me about something that she really wants to learn about. And I might think to myself, oh, I know a book that'd be really useful. So I might send her the book, or I might send her a link to the book, or I might send her a podcast, or there's something that she really wants to do that's going to help her business. I may say, oh, let's go and do that thing together. Or, you go and do that thing. Or if she has a concern, it may be me sitting and listening to her about the concern, about her endeavors, what she's up to. Supporting your partner, like, fucking unconditionally in what they're doing, opposed to being fearful and worried that your partner goes and does these things and they're going to outgrow you and leave you. That's a very common thing that we subconsciously worry about, right? Or, our partner is starting to do some exercise regime and we tell them in all the ways they're doing it wrong. That nitpicking is another thing that really, and I've had to really work at that, because my mind can be very critical, but that nitpicking can be really harmful to your relationship and your partner's confidence in what they try and do. Another thing that's something that's really new for me, actually, in really making our relationship thrive, is how I express love. I've really delved into this in the last kind of year or so, like consciously, like bringing different levels of expression of love. Like we know about the 5 love languages. If you don't, Google the 5 love languages, but like also has particular love languages. I do too, but my goal really is to express love in the range of all of them, right? Because I'm not just limiting it to the ones that are easy and limiting it to the ones that I know she likes or that I like to do. So that there's a range of texture of love that is expressed in our relationship. And I consciously do that. I choose to do that. Words of affirmation don't necessarily come naturally to me, for example. So I've been, consciously doing that, sending voice messages, text messages, that sort of thing. Buying gifts isn't something that I'd say is my go-to love language, but it's definitely something I do from time to time. It isn't even Orsa's love language, and I still do it because I want to be able to express love in different ways, because what I can see from a family point of view, a lineage, that has been one of the biggest difficulties for people and men in my family, is expressing love. So I'm really consciously have a practice around expressing love, and I see that how well that's met and received by my partner. Another thing, and this is something I see in a lot of couples they struggle with, is another thing I do to thrive inside our relationship is to be open-minded to new suggestions, right? Be open-minded to new suggestions that our partner might bring. Also might be like, let's go and try this new thing that we haven't done before, or go to this new place, or read this book together, or do this practice or this exercise. Now, I'm always a yes. I'm like, yep, let's try it. Let's go for it. Let's do it. What I see inside of a lot of relationships, because I coach people in relationships, is often one or both partners are very hesitant to try anything new or do new things in the relationship. That might be do new things sexually. That might be doing new things spiritually, or for your relationship health and education. Like, that can be very clearly, I've seen it was like one partner wants to go to couples therapy or something like that, and the other partner was like, no, I don't want to go. Like, the therapist isn't going to listen to me, therapy isn't going to help us, and all these sorts of things. Having all these assumptions and blockers to, something that would really help the relationship, for instance, or having sex in new types of ways, or trying new things in that area. Like, don't be a no, be an open-minded yes to your partner. Like, especially if you have fears around this area, express those fears instead of just like being a no. Express, I have a fear around, if we go and see a therapist, that some stuff about who I am is going to come up and you're not going to want that and you're going to leave me. Express it so that you can talk about it and you can realize that a lot of these fears we have are not true and they're just unfounded thoughts that we have. Something else that's really helped my relationship, and this can be a hard one for people, is staying open to also my partner when there's a complaint or an upset that she has, like listening. Instead of getting defensive, just listening, right? Shutting the fuck up and listening, right? And being like, what's there? What's the complaint? But what's underneath the complaint as well is something that I try and often do, because I know that there's deeper things there. So, someone's complaining about the dishwasher. This is one that we talked about in me and Orsa's podcast, Turned On, Tuned In, if you're interested in that, where we talk about a lot of these relational pieces that we've been through and we talk about them together. If someone's complaining about always doing the dishwasher, what they're really telling you is that they feel underappreciated, most likely, and they're not saying it in those words. So it's learning to be able to hear that as well. Another area, and this is a big one for men, this is a really big one. I think we do this a lot. We abdicate leadership in our relationships. And what this causes is our partner to be unhappy, dissatisfied, full of nagging and complaining and desiring more, right? Because we don't lead anything. We go into a relationship, we start off by leading and having good ideas and creating things, and then we get comfortable and we just kind of go, well, now the relationship's just going to take care of itself. It doesn't. You need to put the energy to lead things. And this might be booking holidays. It could be arranging new fun things to do. It could be bringing new ideas for activities and experiences and conversations in your relationship. Leading your relationship can also be bringing up the things that need to be talked about instead of avoiding them. Leading a relationship can also be looking after the culture and the way that you communicate with each other in your relationship. These are all ways you can show up as a leader in your relationship. A couple other things, ways in which I really, bring a level of thriving to a relationship is I express my feelings. I do my best to do that. It doesn't come naturally to me. It's something I've had to work on over the years. You might see me as a very expressed emotionally person, but it's something I've had to work on and continue to do so. And I'm also very curious, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, I'm curious about my partner and what's happening in her life. I listen, I'm curious, I ask questions, I don't just make assumptions. I continue to be curious because I see that she's an ever evolving person and being, and I want to stay, and I'm also an ever evolving and changing being. too often I see with couples is that they meet each other, they get to a point and they kind of see their partners as fixed being, and they have stories and narratives in their minds about them. They don't change and update them over time. And that can cause all sorts of harm and difficulty. And I often see that because the people end up coming to me for coaching. So that's a few bits for me about how I see, how I show up in relationship and thrive. I'd love to hear about, some of you guys and girls, what's been working for you. If you're a man and you listen to this and you need help with this sort of thing, as I said, I've got my program. I also work one-to-one, as I've mentioned. But if you're interested in the program, there's going to be details in the show notes. You can just go in there, there's a little link, and you can add your details in, and I'll contact you and we'll have a conversation about how you can apply for the program and actually up your level of input into relationship and ironing out the arguments, getting rid of the conflicts that have been there for years and stuff, because this repair work can be done, right? And I've seen it happen in many relationships. But until next week, ciao, ciao.